Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. It has been an awesome day. I just literally got back from getting my laundry done. That's it done for now. I'm grateful that it's done. I hate doing laundry. I just have to say. Now, when Brad was alive, he would wash and dry the clothes. I would fold them and put them away. That part I don't mind because I can sit, I can watch a movie while folding clothes. But yeah, he wanted to help, so he did the washing and the drying of the laundry. He'd bring it to me. I'd put a movie on, sit there, fold all the clothes, and go put them all away. Now I have to do it all. So I don't do it as much as I probably should. I do it like every 4 to 5 weeks, I think it is. Something like that. Anyway, so yesterday we talked about far and wide, traveling far and wide, looking at international destinations to go to, writing down on your list, on your travel wish list, where it is you want to go in the world. So outside of whatever country it is that you live in. So now it's sort of like, okay, let's bring it a little closer to home and go near and far. So near and far being close to home, what places do you want to go and see? As a child, our parents were very fortunate. Our parents would take us away on most of the school vacations and take us to different parts of New Zealand. We'd get to go visit friends and relatives around the country. We'd get to see different sites around the country. And my parents gifted us kids with travel and taught us how to be a traveler within our own country. Because there are certain areas of New Zealand that have different cultures based on where you are. And the language can be a little different in the sayings. Like you've got, a beach house. It's in some places it's a batch, in other places it's a crib, depending on which part of New Zealand you're in. So the slang is a little different in different places. So we got taught how to be a traveler within our own country and to absorb the culture that we were currently visiting and that sort of thing as well. So here in the US, one of my goals is to visit all 50 states, and we've got Hawaii crossed off, because I know I'm not going to get Sparkles over there. So Sparkles is only going to get to visit 49 states. And I can't remember how many I have on my map down there. I actually have an outlined map on the door of the RV, and as I visit different states, I get to place the stickers on those states to fill it all in. But I have rules for those stickers. And you can get these outlines on Amazon. They're pretty easy to find. But these, in most RVs, when you're driving around, you'll see RVs with them on the side. Some of them have them on their slide. So when their slides are out, you get to see them there. Some of the fifth wheels will have them. You've got the piece that hitches onto the back of the pickup. And then there's a slope piece behind. Some people will have it there. But people put them on different areas of their RVs when they're traveling around if they want to cross off the different states. Now, everybody has their own rules on how they justify putting a sticker on there. My rules are very simple. I have to stay in a state a minimum of 2 nights and leave the campground and go visit something local. Because there's times that when we're first driving around with my parents, when we did that big road trip back in 2019, there was a lot of times we're staying overnight in one place and then moving on the next day. And that was a lot of work, especially if you were doing a day. It was very, very tiring because I was not used to driving anything this big for that long. So it was me adapting to driving a bigger vehicle. It was adapting to taking longer times to get there. So after that, I decided, right, I am not going to do an overnight stay again. Unless I have no option to do a single night stay. All my overnight stays are going to be a minimum of 2 nights. That day in between can be rest and recuperation, just a day of sitting and writing, a day of sitting and reading, maybe catching up on some work, whatever it entails. But if I leave the campground and go visit a local site or go do something local, not shopping, I'm talking about going and visiting a site, visiting something local, Like it could be some sort of monument or something. It could be some attraction that they had, some tourist attraction. It could be an off the beaten path attraction. It could be going and doing a hiking trail. I have left the campground and gone and done something travel slash tourist slash travel-ish. Does that make sense? Okay. Then I get to put the sticker on the state. So when you're looking at my map, there's a couple of blanks. Like it goes across the bottom fine, but then there's a couple of blanks, and it's like, why is there a blank for Louisiana and what's the other one? Alabama, I think. Yeah, because we drove across the 10 to get to Florida in 2020, and in El Paso, we had an amazing day out. I'd already been to Arizona because California, I was there for a while, so that one got taken off as well. I was in Arizona. Do I have New Mexico on there? I can't quite see. No, New Mexico we drove through, so we didn't get to put anything on New Mexico. Then we got Texas, and in Texas, I tell you that it was a great time because there were different places that we stayed in Texas. That Zeffie and I stayed along the 10. We got to El Paso, and I had a friend who I'd met through a business opportunity that we were both involved in. And so she came and picked me up. She brought her twin girls, and we had a blast. She took me around El Paso for the day, and we went and saw dinosaur tracks, which were absolutely amazing. And we went all these places we could take the dog with us. And I said, we're going to go see dinosaurs. And she takes me off, I would not have found this place by myself. I tell you, if somebody had told me, oh, you can get to go see dinosaur track, okay, where we went, I was sort of like, how the hell is somebody supposed to find this? And we go up into this gravel area, and we pull off the side of the road, and we get out and we go for this walk down this trail. And there are these dinosaur tracks in the rocks. But the dinosaur tracks are standing out. They're not imprinted, they're outprinted. That makes sense. So, normally when you see tracks, you see the footprint. This one, you're seeing the relief of the print. So it was actually raised. And the reason it was raised, and I said, hang on, those look like that. And she says, yeah, according to the geologists and all that, what had happened is that the dinosaurs had walked along there, leaving, of course, their footprints. Then there was this massive earthquake or something came through the area, and it flipped this rock out from under there and kind of turned it on its side. So you got to see the reverse side of the imprint of the dinosaur tracks. That's really cool. So we got to see those. I would not have known to have gone and looked for those. So we got to see those. We went to, she took me to the, what was the name of the army? The huge army base there. There's a big army base there that she had actually served on with her husband. They'd actually both served there. Took me on a drive around there. We got out, we walked through their they had a downtown area. I mean, I've been on military bases in New Zealand because I was in the Air Force. Our military bases are nothing compared. I mean, ours would be about this big compared to the US military bases. It was just incredible. I mean, we went down to this shopping area, and it was like an outside mall. I'm like, this is amazing. And, in New Zealand, we would have the canteen, we would have the mess halls, we would have the canteen. I think we called it the canteen. It was like a mini grocery store, a mini department store type of thing. And we'd have one per base. But this here, you had shops, like well-known brands in there. They had movie theaters. We had a hall that was used as a multi-function thing. It was movies during the week. We had get-togethers and dances and parties and that sort of stuff in there, maybe on weekends and that sort of thing. And they were quite often themed. And there was a group of girls and us and I that would get dressed up in whatever the theme was. I remember I made a poodle skirt one time, and I couldn't find, I bought a patch. My poodle was about this big on my poodle skirt because I couldn't find a big poodle to stick on the skirt that I had made. So I had my little poodle on my little poodle skirt, on my poodle. I had a poodle skirt with a little poodle. But it was, so we got to drive around this, and then she takes me over and shows me the sugar house. Again, something I didn't know existed. And it was this house this guy had decorated for his wife. And like the whole outside, all the decorations were made to look like they had been made out of sugar. and it was called the Sugar House. Like the entire yard was covered in the stuff that was meant to look like sugar. And the whole fence was done this way. There were pieces outside the fence that had been done, and you could basically walk around 360 degrees of this house because of where it was situated. But 3 sides of the 4 sides of it were all decorated. It was just sort of like, okay, this is. I've seen some houses that have had some decorating in this time, but this was nothing like I had ever seen before. So that was really cool to see that. Again, something I wouldn't have known to look for had I not been with somebody local. So when it comes to doing local stuff, who do you know that lives locally that could tell you about places like this in the areas that you're visiting that you wouldn't know to go to? It could even be like a restaurant. And I kept seeing this Whataburger sign. And I said to her, I said, what is Whataburger? I said, I'm seeing it everywhere here. She said, you never had Whataburger? I says, no. She says, girls are having Whataburger for lunch. And the girl's like, yay. And I'm like, what is it? So I had my first Whataburger. We had that for lunch. And we took it up to this lookout area. Unfortunately, it was too windy to sit outside. But we sat in the truck and ate our burgers and all that. And Zeffie was quite happy with some fries and a little bit of burger. She was happy for tidbits. And so it was a really cool day out. The places we went to, I would not have known about had I been there as a tourist, had I picked up a tourist book. These places were not in the tourist books. So unless you know somebody local. So what attractions and this is why I love staycations. It's going out there to investigate the area in which you live. What can you do for free? What is something that's really cool that's not on a tourist list somewhere or on a tour guide somewhere? And so that's always something really cool to go and investigate and things like that. And so when you go to a town, so if I came to your town or your city and I said, take me where the tourists don't know where to go, where would you take me? I remember being in, and this is what I do when I'm in different towns when I was traveling and like flying into areas and things, is I would ask the Lyft driver or the Uber driver, I'd turn around and say, okay, I'm here. I've got a full day here. I was in Milwaukee. I said, I've got a full day here. He was actually driving me over to Walmart at the time because I needed an extra suitcase to go home. And it was just a carry-on size. That's all I needed. And I said, okay, after I've been to Walmart and I get back, I said, I want to go somewhere in Milwaukee that is not anywhere else in the United States. What do you have here that the locals know about, but tourists may not know about and is not available anywhere in the United States? And he thought for a minute, he says, you need to go to the domes. Right, the domes? He goes, yeah. He said, there's these 3 big glass domes. And within each one, they've got one that they change the exhibit in there. I'm like, okay, interest peaked. The second one is done like it's all gardening. So the second one is done desert, and they've got different plants from all over the world that live in desert environment. And the third part is tropical, and they have plants from all over the world that live in subtropical or tropical locations. I'm like, well, that sounds really cool. And so he says, yeah. And I said, where do I find it and all that? So I got another Lyft driver back from Walmart to the hotel, and I asked him the same question. And he's like, I don't know of anything. And I'm like, okay, a hint for the Lyft drivers and the Uber drivers and taxi drivers, you guys need to know what is available within your city. Because if you get somebody like me that comes in and says, what can I go and see to do today? And I don't want the regular tourist stuff. What are you going to tell me? Where can we go? So think about things like that. And so I got back to the hotel, did what I needed to do, and then got on the Lyft app and pulled up the dome thing and said, that's where I want to go. And went off. I was thinking I was there for like 2 or 3 hours just walking around these 3 domes. They were incredible. And I'm not a gardener, but I appreciate gardening, and I love walking through botanical gardens. I love walking through parks and seeing all the beautiful gardens that they have, and especially if they're themed. Those are really cool. And this one, you walked into the one where they change it every now and again, and they had ponds there, they had bridges, they had a gazebo. And the woman at the door, I told her how I'd found this place, and she's like, keep your eyes open for the fairies. The fairies? She's like, yeah, we have fairies hidden throughout the garden. I was like, okay, I have a mission. And so I'm walking around and there's beautiful flowering plants. I've got no idea what any of them are called. Some of them are labeled, some of them aren't, but they were just absolutely glorious and they're beautiful. They were just gorgeous. And I'm walking around and all of a sudden I went, hang on. And I went back and there was like this little fairy house with a little fairy front yard and there was a fairy sitting there. And it was just all these little fairy houses and things set up throughout the gardens. There was even like a toadstool done up as a fairy house. And it was really cool to be able to go through and spot these as we were going through. And I got pictures of most of them. And then there was some strange looking things that I would take pictures of and go and post it on Facebook, go, what do you think this is? And get people guessing what they were. And that, so that did that first dome, went to the second dome, which was all the desert stuff. So you got all the succulents and the cacti, and it was fabulous. They had different plants from all around the world that survive in desert climates. And then we went to the subtropical one. Oh, that was humid. It was thankfully it was cold outside because it was like February, March, somewhere around there. So it was cold outside. But it was beautiful and warm. I was just a little over warm, so my coat, of course, was off at that point anyway. And again, I'm finding these little fairy gardens, and I'd found them in the desert area. I was finding them in the subtropical and the tropical area, and some of them were up a little higher and had like this bowl of water, which was like their pond, and they had their little lake house there. And so it was really cool. And then there was this one that had these strange things that were about this long that were just hanging down from this tree. It was like this big giant pod. I can't remember what it was, but if I go back through my photos, I can, because I've got it written down. I've got the picture of the tag thing. But it was just a fabulous 2 to 3 hours. And then I went through their visitor store afterwards and just had time just browsing through some stuff that was done by local artists. And then there was just like the regular tchotchke type stuff. But it was a great way to kill 2 to 3 hours. And it was something, again, I wouldn't have known about had I not asked. So what things are in your town and city that you want to, that is not anywhere else in the US, that is unique to your area, that you want to show off to other people visiting? Then when you're planning your road trip, what do? What states do you want to go and visit? Like I said, I want to go visit all 50 states. So we have some really good books on one, and I've got me a few books to start getting ideas on where I want to go next. So this one is USA's Best Trips, 52 Amazing Road Trips. Whether they're RV friendly or not, we'll figure it out. But it's split up by, this one I haven't been through yet. It's split up by regions. So you got the New England region, New York and Mid-Atlantic, Florida in the South, the Great Lakes, the Great Plains, Rocky Mountains, the Southwest, California, Pacific Northwest. And they're all color-coded on the little map there, and then you can see they're all color-coded across here as well. So you can go to those areas, especially if it's a particular, okay, I want to organize a trip to go up to see, I want to go up to South Dakota and North Dakota, and I want to go up there. So what else is around there? So there's that one. National Geographic has Scenic Highways and Byways. Scenic Highways and Byways, 300 best drives in the US. I love scenic drives. And those are the times the most that I wish I had somebody in the passenger seat to take pictures as we go along, or drive so I can take pictures. 50 states, 5,000 ideas. As you can see, I've started going through this one. I've already started flagging places in this one. But this is really cool because it's, how was this one split up? I should go back to the other one and tell you how that was split up. This one is United States and Canada. Okay. United States goes from page 8 to page 223, and then Canada from 224 to 281. So they're in order by state name. And it's got a couple of things, there's Georgia, they've got to talk about the cities and things in there and the landscapes. You got Hawaii in there, Louisiana. So I've got some places bookmarked of things I want to see. Like this one is Texas, and they've got the Longhorn Cavern State Park. I thought that sounds really cool. It includes I need light, hang on. The light above is not working today. Oh, there we go. Includes hill country cave that provided refuge for Ice Age animals, Native Americans, Confederate soldiers, Wild West outlaws, and Prohibition bootleggers. I'm there. That's somewhere I want to go visit. So, it's got things like that I've already bookmarked. So I've done the initial glance through, done some initial markings up in here, what I wanted to do, and flagged and that sort of thing. Then the last one I have is 100 Parks, 5,000 Places. And this, again, National Geographic book. And this is all US, if I remember correctly. Hang on, I've got to go to the thing. Oh, and it's also got Canada in here as well. So you've got parks of the United States, parks of Canada, then it's got New England, New York, the Mid-Atlantic, the South, the Midwest, the Rocky Mountains, Southwest, California and Nevada, the Pacific Northwest and Alaska, the American tropics, and Canada. So this one I haven't been through yet. Like, I've done like the initial flip through. Oh, that's a cool picture. Yeah, that picture. Isn't that awesome? That's really cool. But these books are just to give me ideas. And then if I know of people who live in those states, guess what? They're going to be getting a call from me or a message from me when I start planning the road trips and stuff to say, hey, where can I go visit in your area? I'm coming to your area. Take me to places that aren't anywhere. And this one, again, is split up. This one here, the Scenic Highways, is split up to New England, the Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, the Great Lakes, Great Plains, South Central, Southwest, Rocky Mountains, Northwest, and Far West. Badlands. I'd heard about Badlands. Where are those? Badlands National Park to Wall on South Dakota. A place to go visit. But, it's just to give me rough ideas of what's available to go see. Because, yes, I still will do the touristy spots, but I also want to get off the beaten path and visit the areas that are not so well known to tourists. Because I like getting into and if they have secondhand bookstores, I'm there. I love secondhand bookstores. I love looking through antique stores, flea markets. I love looking through those. You find all sorts of treasures. But then I also have to remember too, I'm very limited on what I can get because I have very limited space within the RV and I can't get anything breakable because I've got to figure out how to pack it and store it in the RV so it will not get broken. So that has to be taken into account as well. But yes, I do love poking around flea markets and antique stores. I love secondhand bookstores. You find there's amazing finds that you can find in bookstores, some really cool books and things. And I've even had I was in the library today while the laundry was being done, and there was the guy came in with his daughter, and he was looking at one of the books. He pulled one of the books off the bookcase and was reading the back of it and flipped through it and goes, oh, there's a Christmas card in here. I says, oh yeah, you'll find all sorts of things in books. And you find letters that people have written that they've tucked into a book to use as a bookmark and forgotten it's there when they've donated the book. You find photographs, there's cards, not just Christmas cards, but just any cards, postcards. Postcards are my favorites. I love postcards. What I used to collect when I was traveling, when Brad and I traveled, what I used to collect was fridge magnets and postcards. And I tried to go for the postcards that didn't have the name of the state or the town splashed across the front. I wanted just the photographs. John is putting their money. Yes, I haven't found any money, but I've heard of money being found in books. I haven't found any in any of the books yet. But it's amazing what you can find. And people will even have like books that they've written a note in. Recipe books are awesome. Secondhand recipe books, because some people will put notes in the margin of changes that they have made to the recipe, or they've found that instead of using a cup, only use a third of use 2/3 of a cup, and then do a third of a cup with this. So you split the flour up in between, and they've said that's worked out well. So you've got little hand notes written into recipe books on changes that they've made to the recipe to either improve it or to make it a little, make it more to something that they can eat based on whatever their diet was at the time, if they had dietary restrictions and stuff like that. So those are always fun to find, and you never know what you're going to find. But those are some of my favorite things. And there's a town. There's a book I have, but I have a feeling it's packed in a box in the storage unit. And this was a really cool book. It was something about unusual or unique places to visit in the US. It was something like that. And I remember there being this town. And this town had a railway track that ran through it. I can't remember if the railway track was still active or it was no longer active. But on a certain day, at a certain time, the sun would shine exactly in the middle of the tracks. And this was an annual event. They had a big festival about it and all this sort of stuff. I thought that would be really cool to go see one year. I can't remember what the name of that book was, but it was like unusual, something about unique or unusual things to see in the United States. Um, and this was this one town that the sun would be like a spotlight in the middle of the train tracks on a particular day at a certain time, and they had this whole festival about the light on the tracks. I wish I could remember that one. Yeah, I can't remember that one. But there's some really cool stuff out there to go see if you know where to go to look for it. And there's interesting facts that you can find out about things along the way as well. When you find out these things, how did this come about? How did somebody notice this? There was one town that probably doesn't have any occupancy anymore because at the time that the book was written, the town had its population was one. There was a woman who lived there who ran the post office. She was the only person who lived in town. She also ran the general store, and she was the mayor and the council. She even sent herself water bills, so she would pay her utilities every month. She would pay her utility, even though she was paying it to the council. She was, a member of this town, and she had this and she knew everybody that was within a certain mileage of this because she was like this one-person town in the middle of this great big area where there was a lot of farming communities and stuff, and like they were all outside the town limits. And so she was the one sole person in that town. But when I saw the article about this place, she was like in her 70s or 80s, and this was a few years ago. So I don't know if she's still around, if she's still the mayor of her little town, if she's still the only occupant there. But yeah, she did it all, even paying her own water bills and electrical bills. She made sure she paid everything on time, and if she was late, she even charged herself interest. There was this great article in this book in the magazine about this, and I thought that is so cool. But I thought it must get really lonely. But apparently she gets a lot of people coming in because of the local farming community. So she gets to see people every day. She's just the only person that lives in the town. I thought that is so cool. So what places do you have around you that is that's different, that's unique, that tourists may not know about? That people like me who are travelers who want to see something different, something that you won't see anywhere else, can come and see. So let us know in the comments below some of the things, and you don't have to be here in the US. You could be any country that you live in. What is something that is not something that tourists typically go and see, but travelers would absolutely love? And remember, our definition between a tourist and a traveler is the tourist just goes to see the touristy stuff, and they're not interested in immersion in the culture. They're there. They want their McDonald's. They want their Starbucks. And the tourists stick out a mile. They have the cameras around their neck. They're always taking pictures and photographs and always taking that stuff. And they're doing the things like, at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, holding the building up or putting their finger on top of the Eiffel Tower and that sort of thing, which is fine. But those are the pictures that you only that you tend to see the most of when you want to see their holiday pic. What was your vacation pictures? Show me some of your vacation pictures. And it's all the tourist attractions that they go to. And then the traveler is the one who wants to get off the beaten path. They don't want to stand out as a tourist. They want to immerse themselves in the culture. They want to the tourist will do 27 countries in 7 days. A traveler will do 3 to 4 countries in 27 days. So they want a little more immersion. So, those are the differences between the two. So if you had a traveler coming to your town, where would you take them? And some of the best people to ask about different things to see and do, and we have done this, we've found this many, many times in our travels around. Brad's dream one time was when we went to Philadelphia, is that he wanted to have a Philly cheesesteak in Philadelphia. And we're like, okay. And so we happened to be staying at a courtyard that was downtown on the town square, and it was only a few, like 3 or 4 blocks to the to Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. And so he goes to the doorman. He says, okay, he says, I want a Philly cheesesteak, but I want to go where the locals go. I don't want to go where you send the tourists. I want a hole-in-the-wall place that's really, really good that the tourists would not be seen dead in. And so he's like, oh, you want to go to, and told us the place, told us exactly how to get there. We get there. This place is packed. They've got stools along the counter. There's a counter behind with stools on it. It's packed. They're making Philly cheesesteaks up their arms. They've got the buns open up their arms. They're slapping the meat in and the onions and the cheese. And, it's all going into these buns. And then they're like, ding, 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 dishing them out. It was fabulous. The food was incredible. So that was one place that we found. When we were in Hawaii, we were on the Big Island, and we were going to go to the Volcano National Park. And so again, Brad goes to the doorman there, and he says, okay, we want to take the kids out for breakfast on our way. We're heading over to the Volcanic National Park. We want to take the kids out for breakfast, but we don't want a chain restaurant. And he says, oh, you want to go to the Hawaiian Cafe? And we're like, okay, where is it? And so he told us that as we're going around the road at the top, he says, you'll go past the strip of, he says, you're going to pass it. He says, you'll go past the strip of like about five, I think it was like about 5 or 6 stores in it. And there's one that's bright blue. And he said, that's the Hawaiian Cafe. And you want to go in there and you want to order the Big Moco. And we're like, okay, Big Moco, blue store. We'll drive past it. And it's about 20 minutes down the road because he told us how far down the road it was. So we're driving along. Then I said, we just passed it. He said we'd pass it because it doesn't register immediately. You don't know when it's coming up. So we turned around, went back and parked, and we walk in, and there's a U-shaped counter there with the cook behind it, and there's stalls around which were all occupied. There was 2 or 3 booths on each side, all occupied. And the guy says, you guys want breakfast? We're like, yes, please. He says, oh, just go through the door back over there. And we hadn't even seen the door because you couldn't see it from the door of going into this restaurant. We thought this part was it. We're going to have to wait for a table. So we go through the door, and there's this huge dining area in the back there. And we're like, okay. So we got taken to a booth for the 5 of us. And I looked across and I said, this is a really good place to come. And Brad says, why? I said, the local cops are here. And they were sitting in a booth over in the back corner there, and all in uniform and everything else, and having their breakfast. And I said, if you ever want a good place to go eat, you ask taxi drivers and you ask first responders. They know the good places to go. And he's like, oh, good to know. I says, yeah. I said, and so we had this fabulous breakfast, and we didn't realize how big the Loco Moco was. And so Brad and I ordered one each. The boys ordered like pancakes and French toast, and these meals were like $5 a plate. And this is back in Christmas of 2000. So don't know what the prices are like. Don't know if it's still open. But they come out with these plates. The French toast was this thick. There were 6 slabs of it on a plate. The pancakes came out, and they were probably about 10 to 12 inches round each one, and there was 6 on a plate. Then the Loco Moco came out. Had we realized how big this thing was, we would have had one between the 2 of us. We had so much food on that table. And I know that the boys were growing and they can eat a lot. But even this meal beat them a bit too. And the Loco Moco came out on an oval plate. And it was piled high. There was this bed of rice. There was a 1-pound hamburger patty on top of the rice. There were 2 fried eggs. And the whole thing was smothered in gravy. And I looked at this thing, and I looked at Brad's, and I said, we could have got one between the 5 of us. There was so much food on that plate. And so I just thought, I'm just eating the hamburger and the eggs. The rice I really don't care about. I'm just eating the hamburger and the eggs. But it was a really good breakfast, great food. And again, we had asked somebody local. So when you're traveling around and you want to know the good places to go, the good places the locals go to eat, ask somebody local. If you're staying at a hotel, ask the doorman, ask the person behind the front desk, ask the concierge, the place, and you want to word it so that it's the place the locals go to eat, not a place a tourist would find, and a place a tourist cannot find. A little hole in the wall restaurant that's really good food, that locals absolutely love. Yes, you'll stick out because, the locals get to know the locals in that place. They get to see who comes in. So you being a fresh face, you will stand out, but you found the place, and that's always a good thing. So think about the areas that you live in. What is local in your area that is nowhere else in the country that you live in? Something that is very unique that tourists don't know about, but travelers might. So if I come and knock on your door and say, show me your city for the day, or show me your town, show me the area that you live in for the day, where would you take me? I'm going to leave you with that thought. So think of places that you want to go and visit. Write down the list of places within your own country that you want to go and visit. Add that to your list. We had the far and away. Yesterday, which is going international. And what are the places within, today is near and far. So what are the places within your country, within your local area, within your province, within your state, depending on how your country is split up, your territories. What are some of the things within your own country that you would like to go and see and experience? And that's it from us for today. We will be back tomorrow evening, and we actually have a guest tomorrow. And I don't think we're going to get to talk with Emmeline tomorrow, and she is an amazing, amazing person. You'll find out more about her. We'll be on at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So come join us and come meet Emmeline. And she is just such a sweetheart. Oh my gosh. And the theme I have given, and when I've told the guests that they're coming on, the theme I have given them is, this is before the Dirt Nap show, before the Dirt Nap podcast. The theme is live your best life now. And that's all the direction that they have been given as far as what to talk about. So they're going to look at what it is that they do, or it could be something that they have experienced. I know we've got a guest coming up who has a business, but she's not going to talk about the business. She's going to talk about the time that she lived overseas, that she lived internationally. And I'm like, yes, that would be perfect, because we have people there's people out there who would love to go live in another country and work remotely from that country. You can do that. I have several people that I have had connections with in the last 2 or 3 months, and they've all been overseas. There was one in Roatan, there was a couple in Mexico, that all live remotely and all run their businesses from there, but that's not the only countries that they've lived in. So there's people that are actually like putting themselves in a country for 3 to 6 months to a year, and then they pack up and they move somewhere else. And while they're in that country, they'll spend time touring around that country on their off days. And then when they've done with that country, they'll pack up and move to a different country and do the same setup, work remotely, spend the time visiting the local area, the country that they're in, exploring it and that sort of thing, and then packing up and moving to the next country. So there are people out there that live that lifestyle, and we're going to be bringing some of those people to you here on Before the Dirt Nap podcast. So tomorrow we're going to get to meet with Emmeline, and she's such a sweetheart. Oh my gosh. She is you think I'm full of energy and sparkle? Wait till you meet Emmeline. So that's tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific. Come tune in. We'll be live here on the YouTube channel, live on my Facebook page. So come join us and have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hei konera.